that I would not normally do, like
Right.
buy that jewelry,
Right.
and then save it all these years, and then remember it for just before their wedding. Like a few days before their wedding, it came to occur to me, oh, I bought this for her.
Yes.
Find it somewhere,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
So it's the power, that power of consciousness that had somehow, because I was prodded to do this, you know, and I was led to do this, even though I was ignorant of the the energy behind it, of
Hmm.
that I was being led this way. But
Right.
I should have known. I mean, it was obvious because I don't buy jewelry, you know, I
Right.
don't have money
Right.
for that, you
Right.
know.
Right. Hmm.
That was worth like several, I don't know how many days or months worth of having, you know, chai and rice and dal to
Right.
survive with, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not making an explanation, but I'm telling you sort of how I relate to it.
Hmm.
So in this ocean of conscious energy, there's also the ability to express itself.
Hmm.
So we are all expressions, all events, all creatures, all creations are expressions of being. And so I'm saying that in a non-religious way. I'm giving you my kind of explanation, somewhat of an explanation of how I relate to that. But um, I'm also aware that many religions ultimately say the same thing,
Right.
because all religions claim one source,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Well, I don't know about all religions. I don't know all religions, but the major religions that I know of claim one source, who is the creator of all, and so on.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's just that I see it somewhat differently. I don't think there is a some person with a white beard up there who plays with clay and makes things okay and breathes life into them.
Right.
To me,
Right.
that's just sort of a playful way of making children understand things, you
Right.
know.
Yes.
So not to be taken, not meant to be taken that literally, you know. But so there are forces in this whole energy, you could say vibratory states that influence things. Okay, look, if you walk up to a perfectly calm lake, right?
Hmm.
Imagine you walk in a mountain lake. I use that as an analogy a lot. And the perfectly calm lake gives perfect reflection of the sun and the surrounding mountains and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But if you throw a pebble in, what happens?
Ripples.
It ripples, not just where you threw the pebble, but the ripples just keep on going throughout the
Right.
lake.
Right.
So the influences of this power of being, this consciousness in its whole cosmos, they ripple throughout, you know, its influence. You know,
Hmm.
and a lot of that influence is very powerfully nurturing and supporting of us, keeping us alive, keeping us in this manifestation, um, and often giving us benefits that we just take for granted. We don't even
Right.
think of that. I got this from the benevolent energy of the power of being that is the essence of us all. We don't relate to it that way. We just take it.
Right.
And but we complain when things get bad and we blame God for that. You know.
Right. Well, and that's
So
why I wanted to talk about that this week because it's something a little different than what we've been talking about previously, but also to me there's value in paying attention to that. Those like with your experience and the experiences I've had, that nudge or that voice of whatever it might be for you. And I don't mean like the voice of God necessarily. I just mean a voice maybe in your head or that pull to something. To me, it's always been very subtle nudge that it's not a screaming pants on fire kind of voice for me, at least in my experience. But it's for me when I've learned then I followed that nudge or that pull to something, and I've saw when I've had experiences like you're talking about where that's why I was pulled that way, then I'm able to start to recognize that in more areas of my life and not just take it for granted as you're just mentioning. And that's why I wanted to bring that up today, because I think that's a great thing to remember and to start to think about in the listeners' lives, that there is that energy that's supporting us, and we can start to interact with it and play with it and have some fun.
Right. So going back to the initial premise that everything that is the energy of being, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's energy.
Right.
And energy expresses itself in innumerable ways. How does it express itself? The most fundamental expression of energy is vibration. That's
Right.
the beginning. And vibration becomes the cause of creations. Because let's say your body is nothing but a vibratory state.
Mm-hmm.
It consists of particles dancing around in space according to their vibratory state.
Mm-hmm.
You think your body is solid. It isn't.
Right.
If you were to look at it with a high power microscope, you'd see these atoms dancing around in space and forming to make the appearance of organs and so on. But those energies and those atoms, they're constantly coming and going.
Right. Right.
There's not a solid state here. It's a temporary vision that we're having because our eyes are not so sharp that we can see the dancing around in space and the coming and going of the atoms.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, trying to remember where I was going with this.
Well, we were talking about really partnering with that energy of the universe, right? As you said,
I remember. So, pardon me, but you reminded me. So, the energy vibratory state, there's a whole variety of vibrations, ranging
right.
from the grossest to the subtlest.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for example, the vibrations that cause the body to be, which is a material object, are relatively gross compared to the vibrations that your mind would be. Because your mind, there's no organ called mind. They are
Right.
just energy vibrations that has the operations of your mind going.
Right. Right. Mm-hmm.
So you have the grossest to the subtlest. Now, there's a characteristic involved here. It's like a law that the subtler vibrations can permeate the grosser vibrations because they're quick and they're subtle and they can go through. Well, not vice versa. The grosser cannot permeate the subtler.
Mm-hmm.
Thus,
Mm-hmm.
for example, oh, and you know what the subtlest of all vibratory states is? Consciousness.
Interesting. Okay.
Consciousness.
Uh-huh.
That vibratory state permeates every other thing that is,
Mm-hmm.
every other manifestations that is. So we get signals that are relatively subtler than just what's going on in our body or our material realm, and even subtler than what's going on in our mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is usually occupied with the material realm,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so that's why we're not, because they're subtle, we're not so aware of those vibrations taking place.
Right.
If the vibrations of your body give you a signal that something is wrong, you will feel pain and become aware of that.
Right.
On the subtler levels of consciousness, we're not there for that.
Yeah.
But we can be. We
Yeah.
can learn to be aware of being. We can learn aware to be in consciousness and to be consciousness. We
Right.
can. And so sometimes it takes a while. It took me a while to get it with this object here,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
I did follow along with the signals, even though
Right.
I didn't know what they were about.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's for my own self and my own experiences is I have found myself questioning the signals, which end up ruining the signal because I'm questioning too much. I don't understand why would I do something like that? That's not in my personality, or that's not something I normally do, which was exactly your experience there with the necklace. And that, I don't know what I guess in my own experience, what I found in the questioning and the pushing back of it, then those subtle vibrations go away. And it's like I've lost the moment of whatever energy was trying to tell me. And it comes back again in other ways, but it's learning to pay attention to that. And as you're saying, really being, and we've talked 8 or 9 episodes now about various ways to do that, being, loving yourself enough to do this type of work. And that explanation you gave of that subtleness of the vibration, to me, paints a very good visual of, and a better understanding of why it does come in that way. Because I think for myself, I felt like I was doing it wrong or something because those types of nudges were so subtle.
Yes, right. And you see what happens is, like when you're not in touch with the subtle signals, then it seems, well, first of all, you don't even know that they're happening.
Right.
But then if we talk about it, you might be able to agree, but still say, well, I don't get those signals that much. Actually, you do, you just don't respond. In general, I'm talking about people,
Right.
And, but when we do learn to be aware and conscious and responsive, what happens is we do get the signals more and more. And I have learned throughout my life to really trust in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, even like I wasn't really aware that I was getting a signal to buy jewelry by something in the cosmos who wanted me to save it for my son's bride. I wasn't aware that was the whole, but I had the trust to follow through on what I it's not even felt. It's something I experienced within that I just followed through on without knowing all the details of it.
Yeah. Yes. Without knowing all the details. That to me is that is something I have not allowed myself to do. I don't feel like as much.
Well, part of the challenge of that is that the details usually, and what we call the proofs, are on the much lower vibratory levels. It's because of the wedding and because of this is all lower material realm stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I've learned to, even if I don't have an explanation of it, because there is a receptor in you that is receptive of the signals. When those signals come to me, and receptors tell me, I follow through on it.
Yeah.
Even if I don't understand what it's about or whatever, I just follow through because that's a signal and I trust in the signals.
Yeah.
And I trust in my ability to relate to the signals.
Right.
And so the more you do that, the more do you understand when you're getting signals.
Right. And you're able to trust it more because you've experienced it, as you said.
Yeah. And then I have more and more and more experiences like that, which I then am able to identify. And I'm quite rigorous. I don't want to have fantasy experiences
to
relate to as if they were real. No,
right.
Fantasy is fantasy.
Right.
But fantasy is relating to something as real that isn't.
Right. Well, and so as I was preparing for the show and thinking about universal forces working in our favor, I have had experiences where I've been intentional about what I wanted. And I felt like I then partnered with those universal forces because I was clear about what I wanted. I had, put it out there to the universe. And I'll give you the example of my car. I recently got a new car. I was looking at various dealerships, they kept telling me, oh no, you're not going to get we're not going to have new cars in for 3 to 6 months. You have to get on this wait list, all of this stuff.